Hey y'all, it's Wildcat 6305 coming at you from Ike's Treehouse outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And welcome to July 1938. So we just finished up January 1938. We're now in July 38. So for the Germans, this is a big time because they get some stuff unlocked early, and while everybody else, such as medium armor and mechanized infantry, comes online in 39. So uh, you know stuff we're getting closer to war, definitely. Just kind of a quick, well, just kind of a quick recap of what has happened so far. So we got the Japanese invading China already, and the Chinese are trying to mount a resistance to that. And of course, I have my rank carcasses house rules about alignment, trying to get a few more people on the CCP side. We have the Spanish Civil War is over, and Nationalist Spain won that war. And really, just other than that, everybody's just kind of building for the war to come. We have the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is signed by Germany and the USSR, and so there are starting to benefit from the trade effects of that. And along with that, Germany in 39, I believe it's 39. But anyway, they can take one of the Finnish territories there. So in Winter War expansion that I'm playing with. So just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts, a lot of expansions in play, but I'm definitely enjoying it. One of the things that I wanted to highlight. So here in the partisan expansion, and I have to hold my camera because I don't have anywhere to set it down. But in the partisan expansion rule set, you have this thing called special partisan generation. So normally the partisans, if like for the Russians, if the Germans come in and take this Russian territory, then they can roll partisan rolls when it's their turn to try to undermine and take it back. But you also have special special zones that have partisan rules amongst that. Some of it is just it changes a multiplier of what creates a partisan, and other things are actually changing it altogether. So one of those is the Manchukuo territories here. Um, at the beginning of each turn, you make a partisan roll, and 11s are CCP and 12s are KMTs. And then kind of similar at the beginning of the turn, and that's meaning before Germany goes. Formosa is also gets a roll to be a KMT partisan, because Formosa is Japanese controlled at the beginning of the game. So kind of just hit on that real quick. One of the things, so there was a partisan added. I already went ahead and went through and rolled my partisan rolls for that, and the only two results were right here in Western Manchuria. The KMT got a partisan, and then over here in Formosa, the KMT got a second partisan. They already had one, and so now there's two KMT partisans on Formosa. One thing of note, you'll see this Japanese partisan here in Nanking. So the Japanese, according to the U.S. War Plan Yellow, the Japanese can start rolling partisans in Nanking and Peking in the beginning of the game. And of course, one of the effects of partisans, you can have them be invasion support. So with that, if essentially the plan is until the KMT and the U.S. are aligned, the U.S. could come and attack China, attack those territories where the partisans are. Obviously, the U.S. is quite out of position to do that, so that's probably not actually going to happen. But I thought it was fun adding in that partisan role to that. But yeah, other than that, playing with Oil Wars, and it's been good. I feel like it gives a little bit of direction of when things are happening, especially when you look here in Russia, when because the Germans don't have a lot of oil wells, so meaning they don't have a lot of oil derricks, wells, places where oil is being generated, and so to me that kind of helps direct a little bit of attack here of what Hitler actually did was Hitler kept going back and forth, and that's one of the things of why the Germans were unsuccessful in Operation Barbarossa, because they were coming in to take the oil fields in the south, but then they're still trying to take the cities, and he was just running his troops back and forth and not really doing anything, just kind of stutter stepping. Where if he would have just came in and took the oil and then the cities, or took the cities and then the oil, it may have been a different story. So yeah, just a lot of stuff to add up, and a lot of. I feel like the oil really kind of gives it a more realistic feel. And the Italians here, they're building up in the Med, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I just wanted to give the quick kind of overview at where we are at the beginning of the term. Kind of hit the highlights because it's a lot when you got an hour-long video, all the little things. So, well, Germany should be up next. All right, we got the German build here. So Germany started. They could have had 41 IPP because they're sitting at 24 plus my half 36, and then they got 5 from the Soviets for the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact being signed early. My house rule. And so they could have gotten up to 41 IPP. However, they elected, with me playing with Oil Wars, I decided, hey, I'm going to let them choose up to 3 oil of that to be 3. They can have that 5 IPP up to 3 oil. So they took 3 oil. If you remember from my last video, I didn't. So that's why I'm repeating all that, because I'd forgotten, and I was like, hey, wait, this money isn't adding up here. So as you can see, the land unit build, but the big one that the Germans are doing is they initiated War Plan 1938 War Plan Z in the last turn, as obvious, and so with that, they're required to spend 12 IPP, and it just so happens that advancing the H-44 and H-39 from stage 4 to stage 3 is 6 IPP apiece. So moving those two up one stage, that satisfied their 12 IPP requirement. So they advanced that, so there's 12. And then here's the rest of their build is because now it's July 38, so the Germans can build their, what is it, early armament? Isn't that what it's called? Advanced armament. So they get they get to start building medium tanks and mechanized infantry sooner than everybody else. So since the Germans are going to be needing these, I felt it was appropriate. Really haven't been building a lot of motorized and light tanks. If you look at what I have in Germany right now, I have, so what's on the board here, a lot of planes. I feel like I've been doing an adequate job building up the Luftwaffe, and then you have some infantry around there. But then also, this is what is actually, let me find a clear spot to put my tripod without knocking over things. So this is what is actually in Berlin. You got you got a Volkssturm, a couple of infantry, a cavalry, artillery, a self-propelled, and a light infantry, along with artillery, train car, and some planes, an armored car. Oh, and then also got this SS, the first SS division there. So got a decent amount of stuff in Berlin, but no real heavy hitting ground units. So, and I was kind of saving up for that too. I really didn't see the big point in spending money early for light tanks and what have you when I could get them earlier. So, especially when I felt like I needed to build up the Air Force and really get the Luftwaffe to have a good support, because the nice versatile thing about planes is you can use them on land and sea. And if we're gonna be ending up trying to threaten these guys here, we're gonna need some planes. So, but yeah, that's the build. I probably could have gone ahead and threw them on there. I don't know if I have. Probably got a couple of moves. I'll look to see if I have any moves to make, and then I'll put it on there, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the end of the German turn here. Ended up non-combat moving some of the guys that are in Berlin here, that are on that. Some of the couple of the land units started to kind of shift them out of Berlin. Didn't move too much, just trying to even it out with knowing where I was going to place units, trying to even it out, even my forces out between what's going to be the Polish front and the French, and so probably not looking. Probably got probably two more turns, I'm thinking, before we attack. But we'll just kind of see how it goes. As far as collecting IPP, so I'm playing, of course, with Oil Wars and amending the Molotov, and I amended the Molotov-Ribbentrop pack to be able to get it earlier. And also with that, amended that pack. So I'm saying they can get a value up to 5 IPP, which one oil is worth 1 IPP. So their choice of up to 3 oil, how they want to get that 5 IPP from them. So this round they decided to go with one oil and 4 IPP from the Russians. So they're with my 150% economic stimulus plan. The Germans had 36 IPP base, and then plus 4 is 40. So, well, I guess I could have just done this easily. Think about. So my blue are 20, so that's 40 IPP. I was adding it up with the other way. So 40 IPP getting 4 oil, because also the other thing is now Germany in 1938, in July 1938, the Germans can now produce synthetic oil. So all their major factories produce 1 oil. So that has increased their oil production to 6. But yeah, and so that's pretty much it. So they're getting 3 oil right now, because with their major factories, they got 4 major factories and 2 oil derricks. So they could have 6, but since we're not at war yet, we're still getting 50% of the oil. So they only got 3. So, but that's that. So up next, the Russians. All right, Russian KMT turn. So the Russians are going to build a fighter, a combat engineer, and an infantry. And I have the 2 supplies left over. And KMT are going to build 1 infantry. Or not KMT. CCP are going to build 1 infantry be placed there. So the Russians, I've kind of amended the Winter War rules here. Even can't remember how I said. Well, the ruling I came to is saying that they can commence winter war either as listed in the rule book, which is like uh, July 39, or they can go on the same turn or that or sooner if the Germans attack Poland and or France. So essentially, if the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is signed, if the Germans attack Poland or France early, then they can attack Finland at that same time. But if not, then they'll have to wait for the date that's listed in the rule book for Winter War. So we're going to have some border skirmishes going on here and playing with Manchukuo rules. And so they can actually take this territory from each other. I think that's going to be about the only, that'll be the only combat move either the Soviets or the CCP take right now. But other than that, we'll roll that out and let it get back with you and let you know how it went. All right, so got the Soviets that are attacking into northern Manchuria. They have one militia, and then there's also a riverboat in those zones. And so they're attacking from Chita and Amur with, a light armor, a cavalry, and then 2 infantry. So since, from Chita, it's a mountain border. So the infantry and light armor coming from Chita are -1 because it's a mountain border. And then the cavalry and infantry coming from Amur are crossing a river. So that'd be -1, but one of them gets to bump up. But we'll have to resolve this riverboat first. So the riverboats attack and defend at 5. So we'll see how that goes. So we'll go ahead and roll that. And that's off screen. So that's a 3. So the Soviets missed. And hang on. Yeah, that's a 3. So the Soviets hit, and that's a 10. So the Japanese missed. So then that's a hit on the Japanese riverboat. So that's a casualty. And all right, so then that means that the Soviets get to bump up this cavalry. They have the option between the infantry and the cavalry, but they're going to take the cavalry because it's at a 3. So the Soviet dice. So blue are my highest, and green are the next. So blues are 3 and greens are 1. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so both the blues missed, and one of the 3s hit. No, it didn't. Everybody missed. Take that back. So all right, everybody missed. Great shooting. See how the militia does over here. So they needed 2. 12, they missed. All right, so right now the Soviets have everybody's across the river. So the river, there's a mountain, and so the light tank's back up to a 4, and both of those infantry are back up to a 2, and the cavalry stays at a 3. So I'm going to swap one of the blues for red. So then that's blue, red, green, like that. All right, I got some hits on that. So See, both the infantry missed, a 5 and an 8, and both the cavalry and the light tank hit. So the militia's gone, but let's just see if he took anybody with him. A 10, so he missed. So alright, so the Japanese are down, and so actually what's going to happen here is because that one territory, playing with the Manchukuo rules, the Japanese, so the Soviets and Japanese can capture these territories from each other in the Manchukuo rules. So Soviets are going to capture this. Okay, so finishing up the Soviet turn here. So they captured northern Manchuria and the border clash there. So that's +1 to them. And really didn't move anything else other than just the border clash units there. And let's see, placed the fighter over here. So probably going to get the fighter over near the border clash area. And then the CCP, they bought an infantry and made their recruitment roll, so they placed 2 infantry here. And then of all the CCP partisans, the only one that did anything was the one right here in Henan, and he ended up blowing himself up. So that's what happened to him. But everybody else missed on what they were doing. So one thing too down here to note. So in the rules, partisans, when your alliance takes back a territory, if there's a partisan there, it eliminates your partisan. However, the CCP partisans can have a move of 1, and technically the CCP and the Soviets aren't really aligned right now. They're just a controlled minor. So with that, I'm saying that partisan moved out of the land zone, rather than be eliminated because the Soviets took northern Manchuria. Don't know if that's exactly kosher, but that's how I'm playing it. So, all right. Well, Japanese turns up next. All right. So the Japanese purchase. So the first thing we did was I made a tech roll for my house rule naval guns. And so they're already on stage 1, but they rolled for 2 and missed that. And so the rest of their build, we got 3 infantry, 2 armor cars, a motorized, and 2 artillery, and then a tactical bomber. I was wanting to build a strat bomber, but we're in 38 still, so can't do that. And was wanting to build some ships. However, I don't know, maybe I'm just so cheap. I couldn't really bring myself to building ships right now, even though they could probably use them, knowing that Japan got free improved shipyards for their free tech roll, and knowing that would save some money. I don't know, too cheap, I guess, to start to build any ships, especially when I know I'm like 2 turns away from being able to save some money. And I mean, Japan needs some land forces too. So bought another tactical bomber. I mean, I figure probably need some medium tanks, or starting to need some kind of mid-range firepower. Like either building a cruiser or building a medium tank or something like that. And it's like, hey, well, a tactical bomber is kind of the best of both worlds, uh, given that it can attack, land or sea, pretty much. So, but yeah, so that's our builds for what they got here, and gonna have some combat moves here. Trying to decide if we want to try to challenge the Soviet. Well, we want to challenge the Soviets, but just trying to decide if we got enough troops to do so and not risk exposure elsewhere. I mean, probably gonna have to bring some troops in from Mongolia to take this back, which really Mongolia only has one cavalry, so really shouldn't be too bad to try to balance that out. And then the big one is continuing the conquest into China. Going to be attacking which one is this? Nanking. So probably going to try to take advantage of the navy that we have sitting right here. So that token is all of this. So probably going to try to take advantage of that and do some amphibious assaults from these two adjacent sea zones on here too, so we can get some offshore bombardment. Try to be strategic with that. But yeah, that's what we got. That's what we have right there. Just readying for trying to continue the Chinese conquest. So like I said, probably going to be attacking there. Probably going to try to take this out too if we can. And this is definitely priority. And then also I need to find somebody that I can move on to this island right here, because that's one IPP that I missed. I somehow missed that last time. Okay, so I'm going to start recording some of my combat moves here, and I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me think, so I'm probably going to pause it in between, so it may jump a little bit. But so what I'm looking at now, what I do, I like to use marshalling boards, task force boards, whatever you call them, and these are ones I made up. I just bought some stickers from Walmart and I think a poster board and just cut them out, and found some World War II pictures on the internet and just kind of made my own. But what I'm doing here, but what I like to do, so I don't lose anything. I like to try to set a marshalling board on the territory, and then build it on the marshalling board, or like build a battle. So I won't like necessarily leave it unless it's just really crowded. But that way it kind of helps me keep everything straight. I know, I mean, definitely not a have to, but I know what I'm wanting to bring into northern Manchuria. I want to bring the motorized infantry, so that'll be 1-2 into northern Manchuria, and then I'm also going to haul the artillery out of Mongolia with me, 1-2 with him. So looking good, but not great because they're still defending 2 out of 4. I need to leave somebody here, but I'll non-combat move one of these guys into here because, with the Manchurian rules, the Japanese cannot collect income in Manchuria if they don't have somebody in every territory, have an infantry in every territory. That leaves me with these 2 guys. So here I'm still, we got 2 2s and a 3 are attacking with, and still defending against 4. This one's first strike, and he can be paired up. He can be bumped up to a 3 as well, right? Yeah. See, I sometimes, not that I get confused, I sometimes like have to double check with the bonuses between A and Global War, but because yeah. Anyways, so he can attack at a 3, so I can have 2 out of 3, 1 out of 2, but still not a lot of leeway there. Don't really have a lot of cannon fodder, so to speak. So we'll probably move this guy into there as well. So move him, and then we need a fighter. I'd feel better with a fighter going in. So let's see, that'd be 1, 2. So he'd have, coming from an air base, he'd have 3 movement points left. I'm grabbing one of my movement markers there. It's got 3 stripes on it, so he's got three movements left. Now, between the tactical bomber and fighter, I'm going to shake out the rest of these moves here, and as soon as I kind of figure out what I'm bringing into here, if I still got them kind of hanging out, I'll probably move one of them as well. But right now, that's what I got for going into northern Manchuria. Okay, the next move that I got is I'm going to take one of the infantry from here, load him onto this transport, and then this transport is going to move one C zone into here and unload him here. So combat move, we could go ahead and resolve that combat since there's nobody there, and Japanese are +1 on their income. So we'll just go ahead and do that before we forget. Take care of that. So, all right. So I need to stop myself before I get too carried away, and really I don't worry about this. I'm not as strict as the out of box rules are. But you know, with oil wars, you're supposed to pay for the oil that you spent immediately. So I've moved planes, I've moved land units that are non-infantry land units, and I've moved a ship. So that's 3 IPP right there. So I'll go ahead and take care of that. Caught myself moving stuff, and I need to move the camera. Alright, so I'm transferring this battle here onto this marshalling board. So I had all my Japanese troops with the diamond token here in Peking, but we're moving them back. So move them over. So far what we got. So this is a mountain desert terrain. So this will be I think this may be my first go in the mountains or in the desert. So I'll probably have to look at that rule before I review that rule before I go anything. So you got cavalry, so that's 2 militia, so those are at 2, and then got 2 infantry at 4. So pretty stacked, and especially with it being mountain desert. So all these guys are going to be -1 except for the mountain infantry. So definitely going to need those planes. So the 2 planes they're sitting here in Korea, I'm probably going to take those in because I think those probably have the best reach compared to, I think that'd be the best distribution from what I'm seeing. And then I'll probably move these planes into Nanking and move these 2 planes on the carrier. And then I also got, I need to get this into view. So I got my fleet here and probably move that fighter because that's there. Move that into Nanking as well. So really not taking a lot of territory on this round, uh, or compared to the last round, I should say. But that's what it's looking like. So we'll go ahead. Let's see these two Korean. Let's see one. Let's see. So they're coming from an air base, so that'd be 1, 2, 3. So they'd have two. Um, they'd have two movement points left out of that. I'll reach across the screen here, and so that's two movement points that they have left to land. All right, and let's say I do have that armored car and self-support and self-propelled artillery, self-supporting artillery, self-propelled artillery. They have a movement of 2 up there. Right here. So I think I'll move those as well. So get my handy tweezers out. Harbor Freight. When you have big fingers, these are quite awesome and save the day. And I only knocked over one thing, where if I was just trying to grab that in with my fingers, I probably would have knocked all of that down. So just good little investment. Got those from Harbor Freight. Like I said, they came in like a pack of 5 with different types of tweezers. I like these because they're the automatic close kind, so you can just like, pick it up. So, but I'll stop my advertisement there. Okay, so we're gonna start building the invasion of Nanking here. So went ahead and got my number 4 marshaling board. So we got the 4 Chinese infantry there. So we also have a partisan that we're going to roll here in a minute. Well, we'll roll that first before we start the battle. But I plan on rolling in invasion support, which could give all the land units a +1. Now the trick is, or I guess what we're trying to do is I have 4 transports here, so you can only offshore bombard from, the ships that are offshore bombarding have to pair 1-to-1 with the amount of attacking land units that are amphibiously assaulting. So I have 4 transports, so that means I could have 8 land units, amphibious assaulting. I have 3 battleships, so those are going to offshore bombard at 4, and then I got 4 cruisers and then 4 destroyers. I'm really not as worried about the destroyers and cruisers, but I want to try to make sure I have 3 land units that are amphibiously assaulting, so I can take full advantage of the offshore bombardment from the battleships. So I'm going to try to think on this one for a minute and just make sure I get all this done. So I'll change this out. It was the spade, but I changed it out to the diamond here to that because it all fit better. I moved the 2 subs off of this task force board and moved them over there. So I'm going to smoke this one over for a minute, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so I went ahead and made my combat moves into Nanking here and trying to split that up. So essentially I got land units from these 2 land zones coming in. So I have a Marine. Oh, you can't see that. I'll tell you what. Let me do this. So I have a Marine, an infantry, and a light tank that loaded up on these transports. That loaded up on a couple of the transports, and they are amphibiously assaulting. So with those three units, and they'll give these three battleships the ability to offshore bombard. Along with that, uh, this battle board is actually what else is going in. Um, is what else is attacking here. So I got I got these three ships, or ships. These three planes, the fighter and tactical bomber, they came from the light carrier and the aircraft carrier there. And then the other two, and then these two, this fighter and that tactical bomber, came from Formosa. The motorized infantry is coming from Henan, so that's the only one coming from Henan. The plan is to non-combat, if he survives, to non-combat move either him or one of these tanks back into Henan to make sure, because we'll have to non-combat move some people back into these two to hold them, obviously. And then the light armor and the artillery are coming in from yeah, I'm not even gonna try. But this one right here, they're coming in from there. So I feel like this is probably overkill uh, for 4 infantry, but and it's a city that's surrounded. Uh, so yeah, I feel, and we're taking a commander in, and we have a partisan that we're going to roll for invasion support. So this should be a cakewalk, but I'm conservative. But all right, well now that I got this kind of laid out, I will do my combat rolls, resolve combat here. Okay, so the Japanese. So this is the setup for the Japanese attacking San Z. This is a mountain terrain and a desert terrain. So of course, mountain terrain, all land units suffer a -1, and desert terrain, which is a new rule coming in version 3. I've kind of amended the proposed rule a little bit to uh, the rule is if you roll 11 or 12, or if a non-infantry class unit rolls an 11 or 12, land non-infantry class, that they're removed from combat or they're eliminated. But I'm saying removed from combat rather than eliminated. So got that going on here. So the setup, I have tactical bomber with target select, a fighter, a light infantry, an artillery, a self-propelled artillery, mountain infantry, a armored car, and a cavalry. So all these are -1, but I'm saying that, but I also have a house rule with armored cars saying that if they're paired with artillery, the artillery gets a +1, kind of being a scout car type thing. So this is the setup. So that's the Japanese, and then the Chinese have 2 infantry, a cavalry, and 2 militia. So, all right. Okay, so let's roll first strike. And I keep messing this up, so I'm having to. So this is I don't know. I keep messing up, breaking rules. All right, so those are the first strike on the 2 artillery. So that's a 2 and a 8. So they're going to take out 1 militia and remove him. Now everybody else is going to roll. So here, what I have them keep messing up on is that, okay, I want to say all these are the vehicles and these two are the infantry class, so we'll roll them separate. So in that way, if any of these, well, not if any of these two are 11 or 12, we got to remove them from combat. All right, so we have 7 on attack, a miss on the fighter, and then the armored car hit and the light armor hit. So that is 3 hits on them. And now we're going to roll the other 2 dice here. So that's a 3, so both the cavalry and mountain infantry missed. All right, now we'll reset all these dice. Like so. So they got 3 casualties here, so we'll just go ahead and roll all these and figure out the casualties in a second. Okay, not too shabby. That's 2 hits from the infantry, and then 2 misses from those guys. So obviously 3 hits. Those 2 are gone. That one's gone. And that leaves them with 1 dude. And it was 2 hits on the, it was 2 hits, both of the infantry hit. So we got to remove 2 dudes from here. So we'll take out the cavalry and we'll say mountain infantry, right? Yeah, we'll say mountain infantry. So we'll take out those 2. So then that leaves us with just vehicles in here. So if any of these guys right here roll 11 or 12, they are done. So, all right, let's roll all these together. Ooh. Oh well. Okay. So got a 1. That's all we needed. There. Got a miss. Got a miss. Got a miss. The 11 and 12s are on the plane, so they stay in because it's land units. They get affected. Now, the 1 dude here hit a 6. Okay, so I realized I had these guys in the wrong spot here for some reason. I had them over here in the mountain instead of infantry. So I rewound, instant replay, rewound the tape. So the mountain infantry is coming back. So that meant that these 2 guys had a hit, but only one of them needed hit because one was a 3 and one was a 5. So we can correct that through video replay and overturn the call. So this guy's back in. However, it really didn't matter because we had one of them had a 1. I mean, I could roll his a 2. Okay, so it was 2 hits against 1 dude, and he rolled a 6 and missed. So it's all good. So they're done. They've captured this territory here. So now that the Japanese suffered a infantry class loss, we're going to roll for a veteran. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So we're going to roll for a veteran. So we need a 12. If we get a 12, we can promote somebody to a veteran, and we got an 8. So no veterans for us. So, all right, and so one of the cool things, so right now, so I got, take this token off, need to adjust the IPP, flip that over. So I still got the control marker, or well, I got the task force marker there under the control marker. So one cool thing that putting your battles on a marshalling board to move them over to the battle board. Now I can just kind of set all this aside and move on to the next battle. And I can worry about trying to cram all those pieces in on a little bit later. So, all right, well, I'll set this one up and we'll go from there. All right, so we got the big battle going on this time. Let's see, what is it? I keep on looking. Nanking. So the Japanese invasion into Nanking right here. So we have the amphibious assault. So just kind of review what we did. Picked up 3 units. So this is the fleet that's off screen. Let me bump it up here. So this is the fleet that's off screen. You got a couple of transports and cruisers, destroyers, and then these battleships up here. So they picked up 3 units, brought them around, drop them off, so that way that's going to give them 3 battleships to do a offshore bombardment with. And I'm just realizing, as I'm moving all this out of the way, there is a river in there. So yeah, so there's a river right there. So those guys are crossing the river. So we'll adjust that in a second. But just this is what we got coming in. So we got 5 planes, 2 TACs, and 3 fighters. I have a commander, so everything's +1 right now. So 2 TACs and 3 fighters. I'm using the blue chips I have. Normally I use those as 10, but I'm kind of rethinking because I have so many reds that I'm like, why would I need, why do I need those? So what I'm doing is just kind of visual to just be able to visualize it. The blue chips, those are amphibious assaulting chips. They're not necessarily nothing special. It's just those units are the ones that are amphibiously assaulting. And then I got it under my battleship to show that it's offshore bombarding. I got a partisan in here as well. And, 2 light armors, a motorized marine, and an infantry. So, and then they got 4 infantry defending. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to roll the partisan for partisan invasion for invasion support. It's not going to do anything on this round because the partisan, because obviously you can only take your largest increase or your largest modifier, and since there's already a commander in the territory, then everybody's modified the most they can. So the invasion support, there's nothing else to do with partisan, so I may as well see if I can get a lucky roll on it. So do that real quick. So the partisan at a 5, it would provide invasion support to 1 unit, but it's a 11, so he did not do anything. So we'll just set him aside down here. And then, okay, so I got interrupted there, so I don't know how I'm going to have to splice this into the video, but move the partisan over there, and we got the 3 offshore bombardments from the battleships, and they are at a 4. They do not get the bonus from the commander, so they are at 4. So let's go ahead and roll these. And everybody missed. That's great. 6, 10, 12. So that was well worth jeopardizing some infantry to get double casualties. Well worth it. So glad I did that. Move that right there. All right, now let me get my dice back out, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got my dice laid out here. So what I'm having to do, these tactical bombers are on 8. and they're on seven. No, you can't see that. But what I'm having to do, since I only have 4 colors of dice and I have 5 groups here, I'm doing the air as one group, and I'm doing the land as another group of rolls, and then they'll just stay this one here. So that's what I got going on. So, and then with that, the 2 blue on the air group, they'll have target select. So that's also yet another reason to break all this down. So we're going to roll the artillery for first strike. See what he comes up with. Has a 4. Come on, 4. 8. Miss. All right. So we'll set that right there. Now we'll roll the air. Now that guy is not attacking because he's on the transport. So that's his dice. This one's that dude's dice. So doesn't really matter. I messed that up. So this should have been a 3, but he missed anyways. And he should be at a 2, and he should be at a 4 because they're having to cross a river. So caught that before I messed up. Right. Yeah, let me swap out. Alright, well, okay. I have the air in my hand at the moment. So we'll just do it like that. How about that? It's too many dice. Yeah, okay, alright. So blues are target select. 4, so that's a hit. So I got 3 hits on the air. We got 3 hits on the air, so we'll go ahead and roll that, move that over, and we'll reset these. Reset the air. Alright, now this guy's already rolled. So these 4 guys are the only ones that need to go. He's already shot. He's on the boat and can't. And then they should have had a +1. So these 2 should have had a +1, but they're -1 because of the river, so they're shooting at where they should have. So maybe we can keep this straight. Alright, so 2, so that's a hit. I'll put this up here so you can see it. So that's a hit. Let's see, I got 2, I got a 9 and a 4, and those are 3s, so that's a miss. And then I got a 9, so that's a miss. So they got 4 hits on this first round. Alright. So now let's go ahead and reset these. They're out of 5. He's back out of 5. He's a +1 out of 3, and he's a +1 out of 4. So next go. Go ahead and get this set up where it needs to be. So alright, that's that. So we're ready for next time. Now, so 4 hits. In all the excitement of figuring out the modifiers, and all the excitement, it didn't matter because they got 4 hits and there's only 4 dudes. So now let's see how many of them hit at 4. Wow, not a 1. 2 12s, an 8, and a 9. So Chinese went down. Not even swinging. Alright, so that's all of the guys that I have there. So this partisan will go away. And yeah, so that's that. So I will get this back on the board, and we'll do our non-coms. And as I was picking this up, I realized, oh hey, I had them defending at 4, but they were in a surrounded city, so they should have been -1, but they missed everything anyways. So yeah, that one didn't matter. But like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. This is why I battle board it. To me, I got too much stuff going on not to battle board, and then to have these nice battle boards, why would I not use them? So, yeah, just wanted to throw that in there before you called me out on it. All right, so after I've made all the Japanese non-cons and placed units, this is how the board's looking now. So all these guys here are in Nanking. Um, move all the planes. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see they have clearly got, including Manchuria, which they start with, but they clearly have a foothold here. Um, the KMT, they may be able to try to push back in here, but who knows what's going to happen? Is that really the best decision? I, this turn, this next turn is probably going to be the time to for the KMT to attack, because right now they only got 2 units in these land zones. Not so much right there, but through here they're going to have to keep. Now is the time to attack for sure. But yeah, but you can see the fleet that was right here has spread kind of back out around Japan. So we got a light carrier and battleship here. One of the battleships went there. One of them stayed here. Still got some in here. Probably want to move them out eventually. But yeah, just starting to kind of spread out a little bit. Right here in J Hole, it started to get a little too cluttered with place units. So this is all that's in J Hole. So they got some flea bombs, some chemical warfare, and then also the 3 major or the minor factory that has 3. So they placed motorized, a armored, and a artillery. And I moved the armored train back up here because the artillery is going to need to be moved by the armored train next turn to kind of get that in action. And then they placed 5 here in Japan. So they placed 2 infantry, attack, artillery, and then another armored car here. So all these are going. So I made sure that transport was moved back into here so they can reinforce the attack into China. So probably the big story with all this, despite their foothold into China and with what they're attacking, there's only one oil derrick in China, and they're 1 away from stepping in there and getting that. But that's only 1 oil, so that only produces 1 oil per turn. Once they go to war with a major power, they're probably going to be spending anywhere from 5. Well, the Japanese is probably going to be spending probably 6. They might be able to spend 5 on a turn, but I mean, the maximum is 10, but probably 5, probably at least 5 IP or 5 oil a turn. And right now they have 19 oil. So you're looking 3, maybe 4 turns of movement. So, from this point forward, and they don't have an oil, they're not earning oil. So that's really going to push them down somewhere where they can find oil. I don't know where they could find oil. Yeah, looking at these guys. So we'll see how long they're able to survive and sustain their push into China without having to hit that, because without having to step down here, because once they step down here, it's going to kick the hornet's nest. But then at the same time, they probably need to do it sooner rather than later. But yeah, we'll figure that out. But for this turn, they ended up collecting 50 IPP. So that's kind of a lot. That's including my half. Their base was 28 IPP. So 28 plus 14, and then they had their bonuses for having China. And then this is the last round that they'll get oil from the U.S. and or and money from the U.S. So since this, yeah, so the next turn, because they get deducted each turn that they're combating, do a combat move. So this was their second turn, so they're down. So they were down to 1. So next time they'll be at 0. But well, you see, they're looking good, but then at the same time, to know that they really don't have a lot of oil, I see them making some people mad before this goes on too much longer. All right, got the Commonwealth next. So I was watching Admiral Seabass's game, and he had made a mistake with his Japanese income. And as I was watching and he was talking about what he did, I realized I made a mistake. Not the same mistake he did, but a different one. He was forgetting to add 3 from the U.S., whereas I went ahead and gave them their wartime bonus of having the Chinese territories that they get a bonus for. I had overlooked that they got to be at war with a major power to get that bonus. So in all, they had. So I only did that 2 turns. So it was 9 IPP that I took back from their stack. So they spent an extra 4 IPP from the previous turn. But I think it'll all work out. But yeah, so I had to make that correction. So he wasn't doing the peacetime bonus, but then he was like, yeah, they don't get this because they're not at war with a major power. I was like, oh, I definitely did that and wasn't even thinking about it. So I've corrected that now. Okay, Commonwealth turn, July 38. So the British, the UK, let's see, they started out with 26 IPP, and they bought a destroyer, self-propelled, and a fighter, and then they're lend leasing and artillery to the KMT. Canada is building a tank destroyer, and then they also bought a tech roll. They rolled that, and they got long range aircraft, or stage 1 long range aircraft. They started with 8 IPP. The FEC had 9 IPP, and they bought a self-propelled and a motorized infantry. Anzac had 7 IPP, and get these on the camera shot here. They had 7 IPP. They bought artillery and an infantry, and then NEC, or what am I saying? NEC. The Dutch, the Netherlands, bought 1 militia and saved a IPP. And then the French over here had trying not to kill a bunch of Russians here with my tripod. But the French, they had 15 IPP because they made 9. Let's see, yeah, they had 9, but they sold 6 of their oil back to the U.S. A little collusion going on there, potentially, not really. So they bought a fighter because, I mean, why not? And artillery. I mean, they had 15 IPP. Figured this is probably the only time they'd probably be able to do that. So they bought those 2 things there. So, all right, well, we'll get to doing some moves. I'm not sure how many, what all is going to move on here, if anything, really. But we'll figure it out. Okay, so after the last video, I caught a mistake after I shut the camera off, but I decided to, rather than redo the video, I'd just leave it and see if y'all notice what I did. But I'll go ahead and tell you what I fixed. So my Persis units, Anzac had a artillery and an infantry. Problem with that was they only had a minor, so they could only build 1 thing. They couldn't build 2. So I remedied that and just redid their build. So they bought a upgrade. So they upgraded their minor to a medium, and then they placed 1 militia. So they still spent all 7 of their IPP there. Yeah. So I fixed that. So in the slide before this, they had artillery and infantry, and that was wrong. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. You know, I'm just looking at money and like, ooh, what can I buy? It's like, yeah. So, but that shouldn't be a problem here to come in the future. Yes, so we're at the end of the UK turn. We have placed units. We've made our non-coms and placed units. Just shifted a couple of dudes around here in Anzac. Nothing, if I can set my stand down, nothing too major. Just moved the motorized up here and moved this that guy up here. Just kind of start spreading them out. It was getting a little crowded there in Sydney. One thing you may notice, I have these new tokens on here. I happen to be looking back and realize that I meant to place these out, obviously at the setup, but these are what I'm using as minor ports right now, because I am playing with the minor ports rule, of just where it's not a naval base, but it can send and receive lend lease essentially, which is something that's needed for oil wars, and I'll explain that in a second here. But FEC, places self-propelled artillery and motorized there because that's the only place they can place it. And then the UK, they put their self-propelled artillery here in Egypt, and then they had then they built a fighter, and so that went in, that was Liverpool, right? And built a destroyer, put a destroyer in the English Channel. And then, of course, the Canadians, kind of like the other 2 Commonwealths, they put their self-propelled there at Ottawa, the only place they could put it. Real shock. But one of the Queen's rifles, I think, one of the Canadian special militia we strategic railed him over to British Columbia over here. So got somebody on the western border for Canada defending. So all that to say, we've collected income and we're about finished out the British turn, except for one thing that I've been kind of glossing over, and I've got to thinking I should probably cover this a little bit more because I hadn't done it. Hang on a second. I want to stop the video and get my stand set up and then restart. Okay, all right. Maybe this will be better. So, the one thing I wanted to explain was with oil wars that I really didn't get into explaining. I don't think I've explained it at all. I've just been kind of doing it behind the scenes after the video because it kind of felt a little clerical in nature. Let me pull up my stool. But the thing I wanted to cover here is that with oil wars, when you produce oil, so I've kind of talked about for different things you expend one oil, whether that's the outer box rules, land operations, air operations, naval, strategic bombers, capital ships, and when you're at war with a major power. So the out of box oil wars are 6 things that you can spend oil on your turn. And I'm just trying to give high level here. I'm not trying to get down in the weeds. So you got 6 things. Part of my house rules that I'm adding more stuff that's to what you can spend oil or to what oil is required to be spent on. So in addition to those 6, I'm also adding Lend-Lease, the the spec op infantry can trigger that, can trigger a usage of oil as well. Using the rail, using strategic rail movement, and trains, using the train cars are going to use oil. So using those, so those things combined is when you're going to expend oil. And part of the reason why I'm adding things is I feel like you need 6 or so to do everything, to move everything you need 6 oil. You need to be producing 6 oil at a time. And so, excuse my camera. So as you can see, we're not even at war, and the Germans have 6. They're making 6 themselves. Or, well, they're not making 6. Right now, they're only receiving 3 because before, just kind of like your normal income, your oil income's at half until you go to war. Once you go to war, you get your full oil income at that point. But, the Germans are at 6. I'm going to knock this down. The Japanese are down to 1. The Italians are still getting 3. So oil needs to be a thing, needs to be what they're after. And although they're making that, the Japanese, the Germans, they are starting to get a decent stockpile of oil where they're not really feeling that pressure when you only have 6 things to spend oil on. So to me, increasing more, making you spend more on oil puts the more emphasis that I'm trying to capture, if that makes sense. Maybe I did get into the weeds a little bit too much. But anyways, that's not what this is about. Not my house rules. That's going to be a separate video. I probably should make that video now, but I'm wanting to play the game right now. So, anyways, but what happens is the only oil that you can expend has to be in your home country in your oil reserves. So that means for the Commonwealth that ANZAC, so that the only oil that the Commonwealth can spend is out of this oil reserve, oil well reserve right here in Anzac. Even though there's oil reserves here in FEC is not home country. You have derricks in the Middle East, or wells in the Middle East, and then you have oil. I may have said wells twice, and for both things, and that's confusing. And then you also have oil reserves here in London, and then there are no reserves in Canada. So what does that mean? That means the only reserves that can be spent for this example, the UK, have to be, you can only expend oil that's in your home country's reserves. So for London, for UK, that means what's in the London and the Queensland oil reserves. Everything, all the other oil that they may possess or have rights to doesn't count. So they have to get the oil moved to these locations. So part of that is oil can be leased to yourself through the lend-lease process. Obviously, you don't have to be at war. There's no process like that. And even though I said lend-lease costs of oil, to move oil, I'm not charging that oil. I'm being nice. It's a freebie. But so what's needing to be done? So the UK has rights to the oil that's produced from Iraq and Iran, but not the oil reserves, not the stockpiles. So when these derricks produce two, so they can produce two, then they go here under the, or so if these two produce, they go here under that British Randall, and then that can be what's lend-leased back to the UK. That has to be transported via lend-lease to London, or transported via lend-lease to Queensland. If the Canadians built a reserve somewhere in Canada, you could also lend-lease oil to Canada as well, which is probably going to be something that gets done. However, just kind of with that said, that really puts more emphasis for the UK on the importance of the Suez Canal. Because the end game, normal game, you have the convoy routes going through the Suez, but also if you're playing with oil wars, if you have oil in Iraq or Iran and you're trying to get it out, or here in that was great in Qatar. And that's one I added there because I don't feel like the UK should have to pay for putting a port there. But all this oil has to come out and go through the Suez. The shortest lend-lease route is through the Suez and up to London. The other option would be to come down around the Horn of Africa and up the Gold Coast and into there. So if the Allies, or specifically the UK, the Commonwealth, loses control of the Med and the Med is shut down, then they can't lend-lease. They can't, that increases their distance to getting their oil from the Middle East to London so they can expend it. Or it has to go to Anzac. The only problem with it going to Anzac is, if you remember in lend-lease rules, you can only receive half of your, that nation can only receive half of its income. So Anzac can only take 2 oil at a time. However, the British now, the UK is at 17, so they can take 8 oil, 8 or 9, whatever. They can take more oil, obviously. So that's kind of the whole kick here. So the thing that I've been doing is I've been lend leasing the oil back around. So you can't just expend this oil if you're wanting to move a guy. You have to actually lend lease it back to the home country and then use it. This really isn't a big problem for the Russians or Germans or anybody else really, because everybody else has their oil, has their derricks in their home country. So just wanted to point that out. Probably want to make a separate video on this in more detail. Okay, Italians turn. Well, Italians and the Turks. So maybe I can get, yeah. There we go. Get everything in the camera. Nobody moved around. Just kind of decided not to spend any oil and wanted to and we're kind of good with everybody where everybody is at the moment. Well, we moved one infantry from Istanbul to Ankara, and then we built a new infantry here. So pretty much looks like we just plopped a guy right there. The Italian build was we finished out the miner factory here in Tripoli, and then they built a fighter here. They had 16 IPP because we carried 5 over from the last time. So just figured probably need another fighter back in Europe. So went ahead and did that. At the end of the turn, they collected their 3 oil from the U.S. because they're still being peaceful, and they also they collected 12 IPP, and then the Turks collected 2 IPP. So nothing really big happened with them other than just they got a miner factory now in Tripoli. So we'll see how they use that to their advantage or not. We'll see. Okay, the American and KMT turn for July 1938. The U.S. All right, so the KMT, their builds. So the KMT built a artillery and a anti-air because now that the Burma Road is open, they had 9 IPP coming into this. So they built, the artillery and the anti-air. But with the losses that they suffered from the Japanese, they're down to 4 IPP on their collect income. So they 50%. So they have 6 IPP right there. The Americans. So I think I don't think I collected their 50%. I think I just collected 100% from them last time because I went back and started reading the video, and the numbers, what I had sitting there, didn't make sense. I think I just overlooked it, and I think I just pulled what was on the chart. I don't think I pulled my rule. So they had what, 17, 18 IPP. They had one sitting there. So with that much money, they didn't know what to do. But no, seriously, what they did was they used 2 IPP for a tech roll. Then they also had the Alaskan expansion with the Lend Lease build that they're trying to build to get to Russia. So that cost 8, so it was at stage 3, so they advanced it to stage 2. So that was 8 IPP. Their tech roll was unsuccessful. And so that's really all that matters about that. So that was 10. And then they had 8 IPP left. And they had a destroyer and a carrier here in stage 2. So they went ahead and completed those. And so now that destroyer and carrier is right there, or destroyer. The cruiser and carrier are right there. Got placed here in 64. So that's really all that they did. The minorities at war, the Americans, they drew the anti-air minorities at war piece, which there are no American anti-air pieces on the board yet. So as soon as we build that, we'll have that to place under it. And so that the American minorities at war piece, I guess I could pick it up. It's this way. It's it gives a 4th roll. So normally you have 3 rolls for anti-air, and so you can hit 3 targets. That will give it a 4th roll, so you can hit 4 planes essentially. Well, I believe that is going to wrap up my July 38 turn. So that will put us into January of 39. So we're getting closer to those big dates of war, historically when the war is going to start. So we'll see how it goes from there. And in the meantime, hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. And take care and be safe.